So the new Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng has only been in the job for 2 weeks, and he has announced his mini budget. But it's actually, despite being mini in name, anything but. There are £45 billion a year of tax cuts in it, and it will cost 70 billion plus of borrowing this year alone. So what has he actually announced, and why are so many critics furious that this is going to help the richest people in Britain more than the poorest? The biggest thing is that income tax is being cut by 1p for all income tax payers, that's 30 million or so people, from April 2023. That's a year earlier than planned, and it means that the basic rate will come down from 20p to 19p. But what he's also done is abolished the 45p rate that people who earn £150,000 or more pay. Now that helps the 660,000 richest people in Britain, or among the richest, and on average, this is a staggering figure, each of them will gain £10,000 a year from this. Now contrast that to what he announced people on benefits. If you are claiming universal credit and working part-time, at the moment, once you work more than 9 hours a week, you kind of ramp down to a low intensity work search. It means that you don't get hassled by the job centre all the time. They're already changing that, it goes up to 12 hours, and now the Chancellor has said it will go up to 15 hours a week, basically wrapping in 120,000 more people into an intensive work search programme, and you will have your benefits stopped or sanctioned if you don't fulfil those requirements. Now, these differences are very deliberate. They're designed to boost growth. They are sort of Thatcherite policies, and they've been described, although the Treasury rejects this, as trickle-down economics, the idea that you give a lot of tax cuts to the richest people in society and to big business, and they are the ones who create growth, who create jobs, and it sort of filters down to the people at the bottom. Now, Kwasi Kwarteng says that's not what he's doing, but his policies are definitely tilting towards businesses and towards some of the wealthiest people. So let's have a look at some of the rest of them. Stamp duty is being slashed. At the moment, the tax kicks in at £125,000, the value of a house that you're buying. It will now kick in at double that, £250,000. The first-time buyer's allowance is higher. At the moment, first-time buyers don't pay on the first 300 grand. That will rise to the first 425 grand, and first-time buyers will have more scope to use that discount on more expensive properties, up to 625 grand. The banker's bonus cap is being scrapped. At the moment, you can't have a bonus that is more than twice an employee's salary. That will be axed pretty shortly, and there will be no limit. Kwasi Kwarteng argues that it's been just fed through in other ways, that bankers have had higher salaries instead. But the optics of doing this at the time of a cost of living crisis that is squeezing some of the poorest people, you almost couldn't make that up if you were working on Have I Got News For You or some equally good satire that is available. We've got lots of other things which are a bit below the radar but are coming down the track. We've got changes to the planning system, business regulations, childcare, immigration, agriculture and digital infrastructure. There's a list of 138 infrastructure projects that are going to be improved. All of that sort of thing is coming down the track, but we haven't got the detail yet. We've got some things that were announced beforehand and are just being confirmed. So we know that national insurance is being cut from November the 6th. That will help, I think, nearly 30 million people, but it will help some people more than others. So if you're earning £15,000, you get a benefit of about £30 per year, and if you're earning £50,000, 50, you get a benefit of nearly £500 a year. So it really is kind of incremental depending on how much you earn. One of the biggest ones that you might not feel immediately is corporation tax. It was due to go up from 19% to 25% next April. Kwasi Kwarteng has cancelled that. It's one of the most expensive things he's done today. It costs nearly £20 billion a year. Now, he says it doesn't cost the Treasury money because it will boost the economy, and then the Treasury will get more in taxes despite having a lower tax rate. But that is subjective, it's a matter of argument, and the only way to know if he's right is to do it and then find out later. And that's why economists are describing this budget, and this mini budget, as such a gamble. I'll run through some of the other things. He says that funding for the NHS and social care will be maintained at the same level as it is now, despite all these tax cuts, but he hasn't said how, and there were a lot of shouts from MPs to find out how. February rises in alcohol duties will be axed on beer, wine, cider and spirits. So that's yet another freeze there. And there will be 38 special investment zones, or up to 38, in places all across the UK where basically business taxes will be slashed. They will pay no stamp duty whatsoever on commercial buildings that they buy. If they hire a new employee, then they'll pay pretty much no national insurance contributions for that employee unless they are a very high earner. And they could be anywhere across the country, from Chester to Cumbria to North Lincolnshire to Somerset to Suffolk to Sunderland to West Yorkshire. Most importantly, it looks like we're going to have more borrowing, and the £2.4 trillion national debt is only going to get bigger. Kwasi Kwarteng was following rules which say that debt as a percentage of GDP should be falling by the middle of this decade. Now he only says it should be in the medium term, and he's expected to rip up that rule later this year and basically delay the target yet again, because this was a thing that was born under George Osborne, that they said they would hit this target and they just kept not hitting it, and it's now a decade late. So that is the overall of what's been announced. We also got the costings of the energy bills strategy, where your average bills will be capped at £2,500. That is going to cost £60 billion for 6 months alone. So when you consider a lot of that is continuing for 2 years, that is an absolutely huge cost. So the big message from this is absolutely huge tax cuts, huge handouts, a lot of them to richer people. They say it will boost the economy and create growth, but they can't say when that will happen. And all the while we're slapping more borrowing. Will the gamble pay off? Only time will tell.